both my very senior panelists to enrich this discussion with as many examples as possible and, make it richer in terms of takeaways for all of you, for all of us. I want to start with 1 minute because both my panelists have spent more than 3 decades in the industry, and I don't think that is a very fair introduction. So a simple 1 minute self-introduction, please, both of you, if you don't mind.
Okay, I'm Sandhya Vasudevan. I spent too long with Deutsche Bank. I really loved it. Global, regional, local roles. Prior to that, I headed Thomson Reuters in Bangalore, actually. Grew it from 200 to about 9,000 when I left it. Set up the AXA offshore entity, was on the Swiss Re board. Now I'm the Thai board member and Fintech chair. I'm also part of a think tank where I focus on different topics.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I spent the earliest part of my working career in technology consulting management. But somehow I have this kida for complex problems and simple solutions, and I think that's what
a Bangalore problem.
So that's what I've been doing for the last 15 years. I had this brainwave sitting in Stockholm on a cold afternoon, where I was reflecting on different development theories of different countries. And we always think that India is a poor country, and then hence we are not able to solve our problems. But 15 years ago, when I was looking at how Stockholm is able to solve its problems better, I figured out that the way we govern ourselves is the problem. It's not the low base, right? I mean, the same. If we had the same richness as Sweden has, still we would not necessarily be the same happier people, happy and well-off people as Sweden is, and hence last 15 years.
Philosophy. Yes.
Yeah, so that was a philosophical movement for me, and last 15 years has been playing the same thing from different aspects, and it's interesting. Got into advising governments on different ways of solving hard problems. Set up academic institutions. One being the Kautilya School of Public Policy, which is advancing Western frameworks and Indian ethos and Indian problem-solving techniques. And right now, I kind of spend a lot of time working with startups and seeing how problems can be solved in a more simple fashion. So that's what I do.
Super, sir. Thank you. I'm very privileged to be with both of you. I brought today's, because we're talking about something which is, it's not a mythical, creature, but I thought I should share this. Today I see, so this is the Economic Times, today's Economic Times, and you see, sorry, thank you. There is this quarter page, coverage about the AI crash, okay? But the one thing that caught my attention, and this is a page, the last page, sir, page 14. Somebody's following it up with me. So there's a paragraph which actually talks about why it is important for this discussion is this comment made by somebody who's into fraud detection talks about somebody who has come out with a crowdfunding campaign for some of the victims of this AI crash. It's a fake campaign, and these kind of things are happening. So when we talk about guardrails in AI and fintech, this is something that really, it struck me that this is very related to the conversation that we're going to have today. And while we, so since you're reading up on that chapter, I would also request you to look up page 4. I'm making him do a little bit of homework with me. There's a tweet by Paul Graham, the British computer scientist. He says, if you care about money or power, stay close to AI. Because for the foreseeable future, this will be the big source of change in both. So on one hand, you have AI causing all this disruption, and on the other, you have somebody says, stay close to AI, because money and power are both influenced by it. So coming to my first question, Ms. Vasudevan, they say that the biggest, reports, and this is the World Economic Forum, no less. World Economic Forum and Accenture came out with a report early this year that talked about the amount of investments in financial services. I think it was about $35 billion in 2023, and it's estimated to be about $97 billion in 2027. This is like the combined GDP of a few smaller nations put together. With such massive investments in AI, where do you think that we need to start with something called responsible AI? How do you define it? Where do we start with it?
Okay. Yesterday we had an event where Professor Bhattacharya from MIT Media Labs mentioned that AI is generating, 7 trillion. So if you're looking at it in terms of GDP, it'll be the 3rd largest in the world right now. Okay. So if it's 7 trillion, and by the way, I have to do an aside. In the previous panel, we were told the women will be more emotive, talking about different things. I gave my introduction in facts, and Sridhar is the storyteller. So one of the things, and it's related to the framework, responsible framework. India doesn't have a framework yet, but in Niti Ayog's paper which it had put out, it says AI for all. That's inclusive, it is fair, it's equitable, it's transparent, all words that you want to have. But I think if I were to put it from all those who are in the financial sector, it is not such a simple thing, because you've got to have, you can have the tools of governance, that's very important. You need to have the risk management framework, and I think Europe has a good approach on the tiered risk framework, which it's got. If you look at it, I like China's model where they talk about AI should not be influencing the economic outcomes in the way it should be done. So they're keeping tabs on the end usage of how AI can be used. US, as usual, is very pragmatic. It lands up linking up inclusion, equal credit capability that you have to give to everybody, whole bunch of things like that. And India, while it has not yet kind of come out with a pure document, there are quite clear guidances and approaches which you can take. So for me, I think I like what MAS has done. Usually the Singapore regulator is very pragmatic, and they're also quite forward-looking, and because they're in some ways very cross-border in their activity, plus they're small enough to kind of experiment with a lot of things. Their feet, that's your fairness, equitable, accountable and transparent approach, is a very simple way to remember, because I think, personally, I thought our framework, I find it difficult to remember all the points that they put. It has to be humanistic. And OECD has put out what should be there. So you have enough frameworks around the globe for anyone involved in AI to take it forward. Typically, AI is getting used in either for risk management, a lot of fraud detection, whether it's lending, whether it's your credit appraisal, all kinds of things. So you're looking at a lot of risk-based activity, leveraging data to find the outcomes that you want. The second element where a lot of it gets used is product creation. And the third one is around client-focused, customer-focused activity. And Jamie Dimon talks about their focus being on the client side. If I look at it from a risk lens, and that's what this whole session is about, I'll take a minute or so around that. It is, a lot of your data is historic. And until, let's say, 10 years ago, you had only about 150 million people in India who were properly banked. Since then, we've had a massive influx with all the Jan Dhan accounts, which is going in for KYC, and it's going to be an interesting, huge spike for KYC work. But when you're doing that historic assessment, have you got all the components and different diversity of people in that group? I remember at one time, if you were an IT professional, you were not necessarily given a credit card because there's a very good chance that you'll jump ship and go away. Today, that's not the case. You're very wanted if that's what it is. So how do you have an inclusive approach around that? And I think the conversation that you had about how do you have women inclusion, one of the things I would say actually in the formal sector, we have had more women in banking, leaders, including insurance. In the mid-90s, internationally, they didn't have them. We had them. So I am a little uncomfortable with perceived biases. Yes, they've been excluded in many ways, but yet they have been at the helm of affairs in many ways. So there is no single truth around it, and therefore the quality of data that we have from for any of our AI tools, it's complex. So you say you can start building your AI tool with 50,000 records to kick it off. And I'll give you an example from a healthcare thing. They have 90,000 records. And they have another activity which has about 8 or 9 lakhs of data. And yet it's not good enough if you're going to be looking at predictive analysis. So if you look at the other one, digital inclusion, My father at 88 was fairly good at managing his own finances, but he didn't like digitalized activity. He needed somebody else to do it. And I still would like to push for digital guardians. They have said nominees can do it, but reality is digital guardians means I'm not comfortable with digital activity, but somebody else will do it, and there's proper audit trail of who has used it, and I have given my grandson to do it, or I've given my neighbor to do that work. At least I'll have trail of that. We still haven't got that, and I think that's a massive risk when you're looking at a lot of the AI-related work. A few examples. If you look at the AI agents, it's more rule-based, outcome-driven, whereas agentic AI is going to be without human intervention. And you're looking at 4 or 5 different types. A little more rule-based, some of it is model-based, some of it is model-based, but you have a goal towards which you're taking the decisions, and then you have a lot more complexity. Please leverage tools like XAI, which gives you different models for testing out whether it's good or bad. And you have some very good models which are out there. With that, I think you need governance, you need a risk model, you need XAI type of approach. I think by next year it'll be defunct, I suspect. You will need human interventions. Please remember you need a hyperloop of getting feedback on an ongoing basis to know whether it's good or bad. You also need to have human interventions to make sure the decisions are correct, and you have escalations around that.
Thank you. So it has to be pragmatic, transparent, humanistic. You talked about how senior citizens are coping with this whole, AI.
200 million.
Sorry?
200 million.
Right. And these days we see a lot of this digital arrest phenomena happening, and this is a segment that's targeted the most. So taking from there, and ma'am also talked about the Singapore model and all of that. While we can't widely ape the West, because India is a different, ball game altogether, when it comes to transparency and explainability of AI models here, where do you think are the areas that we need these the most? How do you think that we can make this more from that whole cut down on the opacity, bring it back from black box to a glass box? Could you share a few examples?
So let's look at this at a balance, right? I mean, what is the balance that we need to do, right? We need to enable innovation. So you need to balance the innovation need and amazing thought processes that are coming in and saying that we can solve this complex problem with this new idea. So that has to continue. But at the same time, how can we give due respect to the stakeholder protection, right? It's like what Sandhya was saying is about saying that is this transaction complete? Is the passbook updated? Can you show me, right? And it's not that there is no trust there. It's just that some people are just kind of, the way they look at things are very different, right? And so how do you look at giving the right seat for the stakeholders, right? So the first thing that we need to build about is the explainability in any AI model, right? Whenever a decision is taken by AI model, it should be in a form that it is explainable. You have applied for a loan, whether you're getting or not getting, and why you're getting and why you're not getting should be explainable, right? Then the recourse can be then taken about, right? The second thing is you need to start moving from black boxes to glass boxes, right? You can't just say that, "Arey, kisi ne decide kar liya, I am not answerable to it," right? And that's something that we are used to it in many other walks of life, and it hurts us whenever this kind of thing is saying that I'm just a messenger, but decision maker is something else. And that's what something the AI and ML model should kind of start talking back, right? Then the third is auditability, right? You need to have a clear audit trail that is accessible, right? And this is something that if you look at the fintech experience, the finance experience, the banking BFSI experience for all of us has always been that you spend a lot of time on a call center trying to dispute a credit card assignment that's done to you, and then before this call starts, they say, "Oh, this call is being recorded for training and auditing purposes." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's great. Can I get the call recording?" Because there are two people in that conversation, me and the bank, right? And then we go on and we live in a world of extreme mis-selling, right? I mean, if you don't acknowledge that mis-selling, any regulatory response is only short, it will fall short, right? We have all been missold different insurance products. We have been missold banking products. in a personal case, there was an advance given, and then somebody ill-advised, the bank manager ill-advised the person who got the advance and said, no, you have to put in a capital gains account. And now how do we kind of undo that thing? You have to go get it from the income tax. Right? I mean, how can a bank manager ill-advise you to get caught into a taxation instrument that you should not be buying? Right? So we live in all of these things. So that way, you need to have auditability as a design principle, who is ill-advised and what action can be taken about it. And finally, stakeholder communication, right? The same thing has to be communicated to different people in different ways, right? As Sandhya is saying that, 150 million to 700 million people, that's the financial inclusion we have done. But look at the remaining 700 people when they get into banking, right? How do we kind of do justice to two important words when it comes to public policy, which is informed consent? Are they being informed what is happening? Do they even have the ability to consent to what is being told to them? Right? How many of us have handed over OTPs to other people? Right? I mean, even all of us have somewhere or the other handed over an OTP to a delivery guy, OTP to somebody else, right? So we live in that kind of a world. So we need to make sure that informed consent is delivered through that, right? I mean, I and you will always ask saying that, am I giving it to the right person or not?
Sure.
Right? So a large bank recently had an AI-based credit scoring where it was not explainable. The loan decisions were taken without the essential safeguards. And now, thankfully, they are relooking at that thing, right? So we should understand that tech is important, innovation is important, Fintech and AI is important. But at the same time, the human in the loop should be there. And at the same time, the human in the loop should be accountable for the decision being made. Sure. I think that's the way I look at it.
Right. Yeah. Talking about the human in the loop, Ms. Vasudevan, and this is also to you. There's a lot of, when you talk about these AI models that are, sometimes they're trained on biased data. So what happens is a lot of marginalized sections, though we're talking about anti-discriminatory laws, this and that, they get, they don't have access to maybe the right lending platforms, all of this because there is some back-end AI which is not allowing these people to secure those loans. How do you, how does one change this? Where do we bring in, where do we cut down on the bias and make, you talked about AI for all. So how do we make this AI for all? And this is from your experience, both of you, as a policy maker and as somebody who heads, Fintech, who's a Fintech chair, and you also talk to a lot of startups who perhaps are grappling with this about how to make AI for all.
I'm going to cover it in two ways. The cost of AI is very high. How many of you within your company have actually costed your AI? It's very high. You need solutions that are going to be better. And I'm going to share one solution. I will plug for quantum, let's say, quantum annealing. And we were in a session together where that particular company basically said that they can solve a problem which the frontier supercomputer will take 1 million years with 1 year of Earth's energy to solve within 20 minutes using 1,200 kilowatts. So which means there are technologies which are coming in, which will be quantum AML, which will be cost effective for you to do that. So if you're going to be doing inclusive transformation, you've got to be able to do it at price points that make sense. So that is one side of it. On the bias side of it, my honest feeling, it'll take us about 10 to 15 years till you get the quality of data for us to be able to really solve it. The banking sector, until where you had the inclusion, you have to kind of take care of people at the bottom of the pyramid, all of those things used to be there, and the government used to tell you have to give loans to all of these kind of people, and typically you wrote it off. But you had to be profitable, you had to be making sure you were giving funding to the people who are credit worthy. But with AI, if you slightly tweak the model and say, hey, you're 20,000 rupees below the target for you got too much of debt. If you reduce it by 20,000, you may be able to get additional funding. Or if you increase your salary income by even 20,000, you will come over the threshold for getting a better rate. So I think AI can become more inclusive when you start using the information effectively. I don't think we're there yet. It's a journey.
Sridhar Sahab, I take that conversation forward. Ms. Vasudevan saying we are not there yet, and I'm a little astounded with the numbers. She says 10 to 15 years. I don't know whether I completely agree, but yeah.
When I say 10 to 15 years, it'll get solidified.
Okay.
You will get successes even today.
Right.
You have enough successes, but my concern is it won't be fully there.
Okay, right. Going with your background, and you see, there's a lot of struggle between the different stakeholders when it comes to the right policies, the right laws that govern AI. How do you think that, this is a trust-based medium? Fintech is, finance is. So how do you bring all these stakeholders together? What is your comment on the current, laws that govern this ecosystem? How do you think we can strengthen this?
Yeah, so I guess I'll kind of take it from the regulatory perspective, right? As I earlier said, I'll continue what I said earlier, which is in terms of saying that if the regulator is just trying to solve a problem very superficially, it will take probably 10, 15 years or forever, right? But if the regulator is now willing to say, okay, fine, what is the bigger problem that I need to fix, right? Like I said, market investments are subject to market risks, right? This you can tell it is faster, slower, in whatever way you want, and you can tell as many times as you want. But that's not the point. Right. The point is mis-selling, right? Until unless the regulator shows that I acknowledge mis-selling as a problem, right? Take stringent action on it, and for that, the symmetrical transparency is essential, right? Have all of us been missold at least one financial product in our lives? Only one? Only three of us? Okay, right? So that's the problem, right? And I and you are somebody who can take this stab on our face, the punch on our face, kind of will kind of get unsettled for a moment and will survive. Right. But what about others? Right? We know people who have not survived this mis-selling, and that kind of puts people into a bucket where they're extremely mistrusting the system, right? In the previous panel, it was told that if you don't make your money work for 10 years, then your future wealth could be gone by half. But the risk is embedded in the system, and the regulator has to acknowledge this risk and say that, I see this. You can tell me when mis-selling happens. You can tell me when any of the other things happen, right? So at least now, in terms of innovation, thankfully in India, there are more and more fee-based advisors coming into selling financial products, and that's a great move, because I know this guy is not just selling this to me because of making that commission, but his interest is to tell you that, okay, it doesn't matter what you buy. If at all you want to buy, here is the 3 options, because my financial incentive is just coming from the consulting that you're taking from me. So enabling these right kind of players to thrive and become bigger players, and kind of putting, squeezing the wrong players in the system is the only role the regulator has to play. Sure. Right? And I think that's where it should happen. And thankfully now when we call one another, we are not listening to a recorded message. I think the regulator has kind of stepped back on it. But we need to understand that, right? We are a country where if any of us is scammed through digital arrest, right, the first thing that we intend to do is go talk to the police guy and say, please help me out. How aware is the cop to say, if I act now, then probably there is something remaining in the mule process, right? And that should be expedited faster, right? I'm glad that Akash mentioned about the Mule Hunter project. And I think that's where we should kind of double down and say, hey, can we kind of do as many hackathons as possible? Can we kind of make it as many stakeholders kind of come in and engage on this process and make it faster? So I'm glad the regulator is now waking up and talking about all of these things. But the people who operate the system are still lost, right? The first 24 hours of a missing person, the first 24 hours of a digital arrest, the apparatus that's supposed to safeguard us is clueless.
So AI is a superpower, and the superpower can be in all our hands, but we need to understand where to draw a line and who we can reach out to when
Yeah,
Sorry, you have some last words.
I'm very,
Yes, please.
I'm very itching to say this, right?
Please.
The beauty of AI is that AI is an amazing tool, right? I would love to use AI wherever I can, but just as a tool. It's a lousy master, right? Because it has no ability to look at saying that what are my blind spots, right? It has no way of saying that maybe, right? It doesn't know what maybe is, right? It's a master hallucinator, right? And if there is a master hallucinator, you better keep him as a slave and not as your boss, right? I think that's.
I should just add, I scared you with that 10 to 15 years. I was actually thinking about 22 languages, hundreds of dialects, and if you seriously want transformation in an inclusive way, that needs to come in. Right now, we're still English, Hindi, at best one or two other languages.
I agree, ma'am, and I wanted to debate and get more points out of you. That's why I said I disagree, but I think somewhere I agree with you on that. It's a long process, and but one good thing is that we have certain programs in place, starting with Digital India, starting with the India AI mission, starting with a set of bureaucrats who are now looking at it as we don't want to be India first, we want to be leaders. So I think that's changing, and that will also change top down. So let's hope for the best, and let's hope that everybody has this superpower and used creatively in a way.
So we are changing, right? And
right.
The best example is the traffic of Bangalore, right? We are all bothered about the traffic of Bangalore. We want to find solutions. But
I'm happy we are ending with this. Very touchy topic, sir.
We shot ourselves in the foot last week by kind of saying that, bike taxis are illegal, let's kind of throw them away, right? And thankfully, wisdom dawned on ourselves this morning where the central government said, hey, you know what, I don't have a problem. States, if you don't have a problem, you can go ahead and allow bike taxis to operate. And I think that's the beauty of India. We have had amazing bureaucrats talk to us on this. Sandhya and I have been on this journey for almost 5-6 months now talking about AI. And the forces are changing us very, very fast, right? The day we were having lunch together 2 months ago at IIM Bangalore, the news that came, and I was skeptical before I started the conversation, but then I remembered that one gentleman is investing on crypto and he's going gung over it. And I said, okay, now I need to change my way of looking at it, right? Because that person getting into crypto is a world-changing phenomenon, right? And I think a few weeks ago, our neighbor is going to get onto crypto and he's going to mine coins, right? If our neighbor is going to mine crypto coins, then probably will our regulatory apparatus be far behind, right? So far we have said it's strong, it's all of these things. So India's regulatory ability is, they can be quick. They can be quick only when there is a crisis that hits. Till that time, they will always play really safe, right? I think that's the beauty of Indian regulatory response.
I disagree with him. The last 2014, nobody really thought UPI would be working the way it is today. So 10 years, shift happens.
2009, I really worked with every bank in this country and reached out to them and said, let's do financial inclusion. We wanted to do 44,000 no-frills banking account. We ended up just doing 4,000 no-frills banking account. Thanks to just one banker. I need to say this, Punjab National Bank. They kind of said, yeah, we heard the Prime Minister talking about it. There are some circulars around it. Let's try and do this, right? I think that is the magical moment, right? For us, my long curve commitment to public policy is that, right? Where I saw that Punjab National Bank, some middle-level manager saying that, Sridhar, I hear you, and let's work this out, right? I think that's the beauty, right? Till that gentleman comes in and says, Sridhar, I understand you, and let's solve this problem, we will kind of keep bumbling along. But I'm glad, right? I'm glad we are making the progress.
We will fumble till Sridhar Saab tells me where he lives and who is this neighbor who is investing into crypto. I need to know. Okay, so.
You don't read the news?
Thank you so much. It was so fun and enlightening. I'm so happy to have this conversation.